Control Board is called to order and it's been held pursuant to KRS Chapter 77 and district regulations. Notice this hearing has been published pursuant to state law. This public hearing is being held via video teleconference. Instructions on making written oral statements via video teleconference have been distributed and are also included on the bottom of the agenda. All statements must be presented today and statements should be concise, and all statements will become part of the public record. There is one agreed board order to be reviewed today. Would Mr. Gabet please give us the description of the agreed board order with Industrial Container Services Kentucky LLC?
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. The district brings for the board's consideration an agreement with Industrial Container Services Kentucky, or ICS, which cleans and refurbishes metal drums on Industry Road just west of the University of Louisville. Plant is subject to a district-issued Title V operating permit in the Strategic Toxic Air Reduction, or STAR program. The district alleges that Industrial Container Services failed to adequately review and respond to stack test results and failed to follow various record-keeping and reporting requirements. In November of 2022, Industrial Container Services submitted a stack test report for the drum reclamation permits that showed results of chromium emissions significantly exceeding regulatory limits. The district reviewed this report and alerted the company to these results in December of 2022. The company began investigating the cause of the higher than expected emissions rate and determined on January 18th, 2023 that the reported results were caused by a calculation error and that there were no excess emissions. The district reviewed these calculations and required ICS to conduct a second stack test, the results of which demonstrated compliance with emission limits when submitted to the district in April of 2023. Also in April of 2023, district compliance staff determined that ICS had missed some operating, record-keeping, and reporting requirements upon the review of the company's annual compliance certification. 2 public comments were received by the district during the written public comment period. The comments and the district's responses were provided to the board before today's hearing for consideration by board members and are available on our website. The company has agreed to pay a penalty of $22,500 to resolve the notice of violation. The district recommends the board adopt the order as proposed.
Thank you. Mr. Gabet, is it Representative Industrial Container Services ready to make a comment? Okay. Ms. Hamilton, any members of the public registered to make an oral statement?
No, sir.
Is any members of the public requested or submitted a written comment other than those noted?
Only those noted.
Thank you. Is there any member, are there any members of the public in this room wishing to make a statement? If so, please raise your hand. Okay, moving on. Are there any other members of the public that wish to make a brief comment on this video teleconference? Please raise your hand via video teleconference. You will be called upon. This is a feature you can find on the participants list or pressing *3. If joined by phone, you will be called upon. Mr. Purdon, anybody raise their hand?
No, Chairman Sullivan, no raised hands.
Thank you. Are there any questions from board members? No?
No.
Thank you. This concludes the public comment, public hearing. Now call the regular meeting of the Louisville Air Pollution Control Board to order. We are conducting the monthly board meeting today via video teleconference. Call to order and conduct a roll call members. When I call your name, please respond by saying here. Dr. Jeffrey Coburn.
Here.
Candace Shrub White.
Here.
Marissa Neal.
Here.
Charlie Bell.
Here.
Sajad Jamil. Not with us today. Thank you. Ms. Hamilton, no introductions today?
No
Correct?
introductions
Okay.
today.
And I understand we have 2 public recognitions.
We do.
Thank you.
So again, it is bittersweet that I am before you this morning to recognize 2 employees who will be retired at the end of the month. I'd like to recognize Donna Anthony, who has served 35 years with Metro Government and the district. She provided dedicated services in record support for our engineering group and exceptional service to stationary sources over the years as they submitted applications, periodic reports, and responses to requests for information. Donna's last day in the office was actually last Friday. And this morning, she and about a dozen family members are on their way to her native Hawaii to visit her family there. Aloha is used as a greeting and sometimes as goodbye, but the real meaning of aloha is generally love, peace, and compassion. And if you met Donna, you've experienced this philosophy in action. As public servants, we do well to take note that in 1986, the Hawaii state government codified aloha into law. The main purpose was to remind government officials to treat Hawaii's people with the same respect and compassion valued by their Hawaiian ancestors. And so they codified into law using the first letter of the word aloha, the working philosophy for Hawaiian values and appropriate behavior. And these are akahai, meaning kindness to be expressed with tenderness, lokahai, meaning unity to be expressed with harmony, olu olu, meaning agreeable to be expressed with pleasantness, aha, meaning humility to be expressed with modesty, and aho nui, meaning patience to be expressed with perseverance. And I think all of us who've worked with Donna now recognize where her day-to-day interactions with us came from. So we'll also be saying goodbye to Steve Hawley. Mr. Hawley demonstrates that perseverance to a T. Steve is an Engineer 3 in the Industrial Compliance Program. He joined us in 2010 after retiring from a successful environmental engineering and management career at some of the largest and most complex facilities in the area. Steve has been an incredible mentor to APCD staff and more than a few plant personnel over the years on how the Clean Air Act and district regulations should be implemented in a working plant environment. It's not unusual to come in first thing in the morning and see him leading a robust discussion on a complex issue. And then over here, its resolution punctuated by Steve's enthusiastic exclamations and encouragement. He's also been an incredible and incredibly patient mentor to me. I ask truly dumb questions, and he is ever gracious in responding, and I'm especially grateful. So please join me in recognizing Donna and Steve.
Thank you. On behalf of the board, I want to say thanks to the service by both Steve and Donna, and good luck in the future. Hope you're heading to Hawaii this afternoon. Moving on to minutes, the minutes of the public hearing and regular meeting held on April 17, 2024 were distributed electronic for review. Are there any changes from board members to those minutes? Hearing none, those are approved. We'll move to the public comment section. Ms. Hamilton, is anyone registered to make a comment?
No, sir,
Thank you. Has anyone provided a written comment?
not this morning.
Thank you. Are there members of the public in the Edison room that wish to make a comment? If so, please raise your hand.
Can it be related to anything?
Please step up to the microphone and give us your name and who you represent, if anybody.
Steve Myers, Ford Motor Company. Okay, and this is unusual for us to do this, but today, this week is Aaron Benson's last day as our environmental engineer over at the Ford Louisville Assembly Plant. And he's done an excellent job over the years. We're sorry to see him go. He's moving on to the consultant world, which we never understand why. I mean, usually they come over to us, not go to them. But he's done a wonderful job. He's on the board of FIPS, which is the visually impaired school, preschoolers, I believe it is. He's also recently elected as president of the Certified Hazardous Materials Management Group, right, which I encourage you to attend the meetings when they occur. But we're going to miss him, and he's taught me a lot. I live and work in Dearborn, Michigan, but he's taught me a lot about, you know, how to interact with the fine folks at APCD, and it's been enjoyable for me. But I want to wish him the best of luck, and Aaron, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, and good luck in the consulting world.
Thank you. I'll still be around, so
Remember to bill them when you're here.
that's right.
Let's see. Are there members of the public that wish to make a comment on this video teleconference? Please raise your hand via video teleconference you'll be called on. This is a feature you can find on participants list by pressing *3. If joined by phone, and you will be called on. Mr. Pernon, anybody raise their hand?
No, Chairman Sullivan, no raised hands.
Thank you. This completes the public comment portion of the meeting. There is no unfinished business to attend to. In regards to new business, we will now move to the agreed board order with Industrial Container Services, Kentucky LLC. The district has recommended the board adopt the agreed board order with Industrial Container Services. Is there a motion to adopt the agreed board order?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussions by the board? We'll now take a roll call. Please unmute your mic and say yes if you wish to adopt the agreed board order with Industrial Container Services, and no if you do not. Jeffrey Coburn,
Agreed.
Candace Shob White,
Yes.
Marissa Neal,
Yes.
Charlie Bell,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. The agreed board order with Industrial Container Services is adopted. No committees have met since our last meeting. I will note that our 2 board members will be assigned to committees here in the immediate future. And I think one will have to meet to identify a chairperson.
Right, I
Correct.
believe the policy committee will
Policy
need
committee.
to elect a new chair. So we'll call that meeting to order, probably after next month's board meeting.
Which you'll be on the policy committee. All right. Moving to staff reports. Ms. Hamilton, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So this morning, the district has 3 posted positions: the APC Data Analysis Coordinator, which closes tomorrow, and an Engineer 1 and APCD Regulatory Coordinator position, both of which will close in 2 weeks. Please share these postings and encourage good candidates to apply. You may note that Assistant Director Michelle King has left us to our own devices this morning, and I'm not touching anything over there. But she is attending the National Association of Clean Air Agencies, or NACA's spring conference meeting in Philadelphia. Late last month, I attended the Association of Air Pollution Control Agencies spring conference meeting in Indianapolis. And later this month, we'll both be attending the Spring Grants and Planning Conference with Metro 4 CESAR. APCA and NACA are our national level advocacy organizations, while Metro 4 CESAR is our multi-jurisdictional planning partner. At each of these conferences, we network with our national peers, EPA regional and national leadership, and leverage our expertise and resources to continue improving air quality. Those air quality challenges continue to grow. It is unfortunate that this morning, I'll let you know, the Canadian wildfires have reemerged. They never went out last winter. They simply went underground, and with extremely dry and windy conditions in Canada right now, those fires have kicked back up. So there are evacuations taking place, thousands of acres currently burning, and we're seeing air quality impacts again in the upper Midwest.
I will note that this morning's news feed that I saw said that Kansas City had the worst air quality in the states this morning.
Brian Paris, on a daily basis, when we have these widespread events going on, prepares an air quality forecast looking at a variety of different air quality tools, including satellite data, PA's fire and smoke map, and meteorological conditions, sharing what's happening and what we believe may happen in our area. And I don't mean to put Brian on the spot, but I'm hoping that next month he'll allow us to share one of those morning briefings with the board, just so you can simply see what it takes for us to stay on top of those ever-changing conditions. And again, despite our efforts here in Louisville to reduce pollution from stationary sources, which has been tremendously successful, we still need people to know their air. That's to protect their health and to take steps to reduce their own emissions. Matt Mudd will be sharing more about this in our celebration of National Air Quality Awareness Week in a few minutes. But we really encourage folks to sign up to receive alerts straight to their phone or email. And residents can also follow live air quality conditions and get health guidance with resources like our Louisville Air Watch at louisvilleky.gov/air. There, they'll find valuable health information thanks to our team of air monitoring scientists who work hard to keep our air monitoring network running 24/7, and many others at the district who help share this important information. These folks are national leaders. I heard several times at the conference in Indy about how robust our network is and the quality of the people who operate it. It's good to hear that praise. It's well deserved. And so I'm grateful for our air monitoring program's dedicated service, and I know what it means to people who live here in Louisville and breathe our air. As a related issue, we've opened a request for proposal for an exceptional event demonstration for particulate matter and ozone impacts from last year's wildfires, and we are seeking bids to complete these necessary demonstrations. Are there any questions?
Not for me.
Good to go. So, you may have seen in the news that in early May, EPA has finalized some new greenhouse gas rules. Now, as part of that, they have published a new source performance standard for greenhouse gas emissions from new, modified, and reconstructed fossil fuel-fired electric generating units, emission guidelines for greenhouse gas emissions from existing fossil fuel-fired electric generating units, and repeal of the Affordable Clean Energy Rule. The rule sets new performance standards for greenhouse gas emissions from new fossil fuel-fired electric generating units and emission guidelines for existing coal-fired electric generating units. EPA expects that this rule for the existing coal-fired and natural gas-fired units will ensure that all coal-fired plants that plan to run in the long term and all new baseload gas-fired plants will control 90% of their carbon pollution. There's a lot of technical details here. We're not prepared to roll that out to folks today, but we will. Candidly, we're hoping that US EPA will assist with this by producing a video like they did after our last board meeting on the HON rule, or the fence line monitoring rule. You can find that video on our website. We will include it here with our meeting minutes. EPA also, as part of this package, published some associated rules. And this includes a final strengthening and updating for the mercury and air toxics for MAT standard for coal-fired power plants, tightening the emission standards for toxic metals by 67%, and finalizing a 70% reduction in the emission standard for mercury from existing lignite-fired sources. They published a final rule to reduce pollutants discharged through wastewater from coal-fired power plants by more than 660 million pounds per year, ensuring cleaner water for affected communities, including those who may have environmental justice impacts. There's also a final rule that will require the safe management of coal ash that's placed in areas that were unregulated at the federal level until now, including at previously used disposal areas that may leak and contaminate groundwater. So all that happened on May 8th. At the same time and on the same day, 23 states, including Kentucky, filed suit in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia, asserting that the rule is unlawful because it violates the major questions doctrine established in the U.S. Supreme Court decision, West Virginia v. EPA, and that the new rule is expected to prompt many coal-fired power plants to shut down. Kansas and Ohio filed suit separately, and the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association announced a lawsuit on the same day on the basis that the rule is unlawful, unreasonable, and unachievable.
They combine those.
Likely. For us, these will not limit or stay our need to go ahead and get busy working on implementing this rule or these rules. And so we're going to move forward until someone states it. But given our agenda today, we will provide a more in-depth presentation on these new rules and the litigation later this summer. Hopefully, if EPA does produce a video, we will show that as part of the board meeting. That brings us to our presentations at this point. Are there any questions about anything we've talked about before?
We just had a curiosity, how many coal power plants are still active or here in Jefferson County? Are there very many?
No. Right now, there are 4 units at Mill Creek. Unit 1 and 2 will be shut down between now and 2028 with the installation of a
The
new
gas.
gas combined cycle turbine. And then American Synthetic Rubber Company is the last coal-fired boiler at the moment, although they have been permitted to install a natural gas-fired boiler there as well.
Is there a time frame on that unit?
There is not.
Okay, thank you.
Did I miss any? Okay,
Trumbull County is still up and running.
absolutely.
That was in the 90s?
Matt, do you remember when Trumbull County was built?
Probably maybe late eighties, and they
Late
built
80s.
newer units since it's the newest in the state, from my understanding.
Trumbull County's the newest in the state.
Yeah, there's 2 units at Trumbull County. The earlier, the unit 1 is around the 80s, and then unit 2 was early 2000s. So that's probably one of the last coal-fired plants that's been built in the US.
Yeah. Interesting. I was gonna ask that for background. How many installs in the last 10 years, but none, 0. Okay.
When we talk about the rule, we'll try to remember to bring a map that shows the coal-fired electric generating units, particularly within our region. Air pollution doesn't abide by jurisdictional boundaries. And EPA has, modeled that we get about 30% of the nitrogen oxides that drive ozone formation here in Louisville from outside of Louisville. So.
I think EPA noted in this rule packet that they're applying standards to existing coal units and not the new units, not because those wouldn't be important, but because there's no planned new units. So there wasn't a need to pass those standards. So I think that's pretty telling in where we're heading in the future.
Oh, is there not an NSPS for coal fired unit?
Not the new ones.
There is, but it wasn't adjusted as part of this.
Was it adjusted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For this rule packet.
Okay. Well, thank you. As we talked about at last month's board meeting, US EPA has made some determinations with respect to PM 2.5 air monitoring data, specifically that which is monitored using the T640 continuous PM analyzer. So EPA does expect to publish an update in the Federal Register in a week or so. And because EPA has said a week or so, it might be 2 or 3. Regarding a series of adjustments to PM 2.5 data collected since 2017 with Teledyne Advanced Pollution Instrumentation, T640 or T640X Federal Equivalent Method or FEM monitors. During the scientific review of EPA's policy assessment of the reconsideration of the PM National Ambient Air Quality Standard, the Clean Air Scientific Advisory Committee advised EPA to make automated FEMs, or these T640 devices, more comparable with the federal reference method monitors. EPA approved, and they have applied an equation developed by Teledyne to update previously collected data in the agency's air quality system, or AQS. Currently, operating T640 and T640X monitors have incorporated an adjustment and are reporting updated data. And Teledyne has rescinded their previous confidential business information claim, and EPA now has posted the network alignment equation in the docket. So EPA has taken steps to adjust this data. It is still preliminary. The district has until May 28th to review the data, after which US EPA will begin the process of recalculating design values for 2021 to 2023. The importance of that is that is the data set that we'll use in February 2025 as our initial designation request to US EPA.
So effectively of June 1st is when we'll start seeing adjusted data.
We will be reporting the adjusted data in the June
Okay.
board meeting. In terms of seeing adjusted data, the adjustments to the equipment were made in November, December.
Okay,
And so we're reporting adjusted data.
recording but not reporting.
We are reporting.
Okay,
So Billy DeWitt is going to walk us through a review of this issue, and followed by Matt Mudd with some air quality action awareness week updates as well as our air quality action partner update.
Thank you. I'm Billy DeWitt, Air Monitoring Program Manager, and I'll go a little more in depth on what Director Hamilton was speaking about with the PM 2.5 data that we measure and report on your monthly reports, and how that'll appear and perhaps change, likely change in the near future. Next slide, please, Andy. This is a snapshot. It's on your current board report for May. It's a second PM table. I only show this to note that the caveats here, we have 2014 to 2018 data, and that's data that were reported from federal reference method instruments, and I'll talk about what that is a little more in a second. From 2019 through 2023, that is data from federal equivalent method instruments. And then beginning in December of 2024 and moving forward, it's federal equivalent method with the new firmware equation installed in the instrumentation. Next slide, please, Andy. So the federal reference method is the tried and true method developed in the late 90s, where a sampler draws in ambient air at a constant flow and use a specifically shaped cyclone to separate particle sizes and get the mass of 2.5 or less microns on a filter. Each filter is weighed before and after sampling, and it requires a specialized laboratory to do that, and a lot of shipping in between. Careful chain of custody is maintained throughout that process. Those reference method monitors comprised our entire network for probably 2 decades, and they're limited in their technology compared to the equivalent methods of today, but they're very reliable. Drawback is there's only one 24-hour measurement per 3 days because of the extreme amount of labor and cost and quality assurance requirements. Very detailed in quality assurance. Next slide, please. We've gone through several iterations of federal equivalent methods here at APCD. A few years ago, we switched over to the API Teledyne T640 and T640X. These measure PM mass with scattered light spectrometry. And we introduced these in 2018, provides continuous concentration. So that was a real benefit. We could use them for both the real-time air quality index as well as regulatory design value calculations. They're very precise, can even provide sub-hourly, even down to 1 minute averages. They're easier to operate, less labor intensive than the FRM, obviously, and most other equivalent methods that we've tried. It contains its own challenges, but all instrumentation does.
Looks kind of fragile.
It can be, but they're housed in shelters and well structured, so not a lot of movement there. Next slide, please, Andy. How we assess these methods is we co-locate them, both with themselves and with reference methods. So we put the particulate instruments side by side to assess its repeatability and variability, and we evaluate the precision of the method. This is required to some extent for quality assurance purposes, but APCD typically goes above and beyond, and so we have performed additional co-location studies to better evaluate the methods. The T640 to T640 co-location shows outstanding repeatability, and it also shows in a co-location with a FRM shows good repeatability and precision. As an FEM goes, the precision seems to be very, very good, but there are some seasonal differences between T640 and FRM data. Next slide, please.
So is at some point you will quit doing the FRM method?
We'd like to, but if you, I don't think you ever will, because it's required by regulation to have a few co-located with your FEMs. And that's for this very reason right here, to make sure that the data are accurate with the FRM measurement. This is credit to Brian Paris here, some visuals that he produced a couple years ago and presented to the board in our early looks at the co-location with T640s and FRMs. During the cool, dry season, we saw that the T640s could be 1.5 to 2 micrograms higher, and 1 to 2 micrograms higher on average relative to the FRM. And they're more consistent with the FRM during warm and humid seasons. So we see the difference in this data and the absolute difference. And that's important. It's important to be accurate as always, but more important than ever. Next slide, please, Andy. Because the recent change in the PM 2.5 standard, which reduced it by about 25%. So we're at a very low level, and any difference creates a big percentage difference in what you look at for design values. We went down from an annual 24-hour average standard of 12 micrograms down to 9 micrograms for that 24-hour average. Next slide. So the correction factor in June of 23, Teledyne released this based on a lot of these co-location studies around the United States. And of course, they were looking at it in-house, and it was applied. It was for use to be applied at current T640 sites and monitoring stations. EPA then advised all agencies to apply the new firmware as soon as practicable. We applied, did some studies and some co-location and made sure the firmware was adaptable and reliable with FRM instruments, and applied all network upgrades to the FEMs in December of last year. EPA has released a notice this year with steps to back correct previous T640 FEM data, going back since the FEM operation of that data. This encouraged agencies to enter multiple years of temperature data, if not already submitted. And so this back correction is heavily based on temperature. And so it was a burden for those agencies who operated stations without already reporting temperature data. Some folks report ambient temperature from a separate instrument. Some report the temperature data that the T640 measures. Some don't report temperature at all. So it's been a mix across the country, and people have really had to rush to get a lot of that in and a lot of that evaluated, especially by May 1st this year when data was certified.
How far back did they go, or do you go?
Well, I think 2017 is about when the FEM operation began. So a couple of cycles of design value. So they're going back and correcting that data. 2021 to 23 is obviously the most important at this point to get a more accurate number. And so just late last week, we received notice that the EPA was moving forward with this, and that we had that corrected data had been entered into the air quality system, data corrected by EPA, back corrected, data that we had already submitted and certified. So we have 2 weeks to go through that data and make sure it's properly been adjusted. And so we'll begin that process, and it'll be different for every agency, depending on what temperature data they're looking at and how the equation was applied. And we really are still looking for a little bit more information from EPA on exactly their methodology when doing this. So next slide, please, Andy. That's hard to see. So I'm gonna walk up.
Making us feel better. You gotta walk.
Yeah. This is a small table that shows the potential changes based on the correction factor. And this is 21 to 23 data, the 3-year average design value. Our Algonquin site went from 10.0 down to 8.9 micrograms per cubic meter. I won't read all of it, but our design value site that we operate currently went from 10.9 down to 9.5 after the correction factor was applied. And so there are other instruments within our network that apply to our design value from Indiana. And I didn't post that data because it looks like they have some work to do as far as potentially submitting more temperature data to refine that correction. I think some of their data was conservatively corrected based on no temperature data. So it's a 20°C difference if you're above or below. And one is a little more conservative than the other based on that higher bias during cooler weather. Additionally, even with this correction, you'll note that we remain over the 9.0 design value for particulate matter, PM 2.5. And you may see further changes to that. As Director Hamilton stated, we have submitted proposals for analysis of exceptional events based on Canadian wildfires, and some of that data should be excluded based on those events out of our jurisdiction.
But the correction is fairly significant change.
It is, it's 1.5 to 2 micrograms in some places, and it's, especially in where there's cooler temperatures, it's going to be a larger difference. So it's, it can be significant, yes.
Okay.
If there's any other questions, I'm happy to try, but we're still rushing through this and trying to learn as we go as well. EPA hasn't released a whole lot of information.
If you're waiting for direction still from them, do they extend no?
We never know. So
So-
maybe.
Possibly, but one of the things that we're really bumping up against here is the Clean Air Act with that PM 2.5 redesignation starts a time clock running. And so for us here in the state and local program, by February, we need to have an initial recommendation for designations. And it uses that 21 to 23 data set. And so EPA is trying to provide this information as early as possible so that programs can evaluate whether they're going to need to submit exceptional event demonstrations, because those exceptional event demonstrations will need to be done quickly. And then EPA will need to review those before, hopefully, that February deadline. There's just a whole lot of timeframes here that are going to come crashing together. The saving grace to some of this is that EPA doesn't make a final determination on an area's designation status until February of the next year. So 2026, and they'll use the 22 through 24 design values. So it's a lot of uncertainty for us in the programs because the Clean Air Act keeps, rolling along, and we have to do our work despite all this uncertainty. So.
And you're anticipating the need for the exceptional event criteria.
Yes, we have, particularly for particulate matter, I think it's a large burden of proof is required for EPA to approve it, but we think we have more than enough for particulate matter. Ozone's a lot more tricky because of the atmospheric chemistry that you have to somehow prove. But we're going to take a look at both and see the feasibility.
Given the nature of the wildfire impact in the region, how widespread is there? Got to be commonality between a whole lot of places,
Absolutely.
right?
There
And
is.
it's available information that all can use.
So EPA is working on a series of tools to assist with the preparation of exceptional event demonstrations. Some of those tools have been available. They're a little bit more accessible decision trees in terms of evaluating which data you may need to submit in that exceptional event demonstration. But as Billy mentioned, even with particulate matter, the scientific demonstration burden is very high. We think we have what we need for PM 2.5. But again, if we have additional impacts from wildfires this summer, we're going to have to repeat this exercise for that 2024 final designation period. We raised you of exceptional events and how widespread and numerous the demonstrations are going to be with EPA early in our conversations around a finalized PM 2.5 standard. We had asked for a regional or national finding by EPA as they evaluated the data. That didn't happen. We have heard in subsequent conversations that headquarters is now very aware of how many exceptional event demonstrations they're going to see in this initial round,
That came as a surprise to them.
apparently. So,
Okay.
I have a question, sir. Particle mass is also dependent on relative humidity. In the federal reference method, I believe there's a standard relative humidity where they do those weighings. Do you know what that is?
Yes, I think that's 35%. It's been a while since I've looked over the lab numbers, but it's
Oh,
where
okay.
they weigh those filters.
Yeah, let's say it's 35%. So what's done to ensure that the T640 measurements are either at 35% or corrected?
Yeah,
to
so
35%?
that's a commonality with equivalent methods, and the solution is usually to heat the airflow and drop the humidity before it enters mass concentration. So it's usually a heated inlet, and that will bring the humidity down to a level that more accurately conveys particulate mass and not necessarily moisture mass.
Mhm. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well,
Matt?
Good morning.
So I have a couple updates this morning. I'll give Andy a second to pull up my presentation. The first of which is an update on National Air Quality Awareness Week and our efforts there. So it is just one slide. This one's quicker. So Andy, you can go on to the next slide. And it's just pictures. So a lighter one than air monitoring data. But so just a quick recap of National Air Quality Awareness Week, which is an event that is put on annually by US EPA. This year it was held May 6th through 10th, which was last Monday through Friday. The theme for this year was Knowing Your Air. That was chosen to highlight resources that increase air quality awareness and encourage people to take action and incorporate air quality knowledge into their daily living. Resources that Rachel did an excellent job of pointing out earlier in her presentation, like the Air Quality Index, that EPA tool that tells us live air quality and historic air quality values, as well as air quality alerts that we send out when air quality is forecast to be poor, and our own Louisville Air Watch, resources like our own Louisville Air Watch at louisvilleky.gov/air that provide live air quality conditions 24/7, along with health guidance. So our goal for this week was to make folks in the public aware of those resources, kind of emphasize signing up for alerts, knowing where to get live air quality information, and other things like that. Up there on the pictures, a couple of things that we did include, we were last Tuesday, took part in the mayor's weekly press conference. He officially here in Louisville proclaimed it to be Air Quality Awareness Week. So we got a nice proclamation out of it. It was good to stand in front of the media, tell them about Air Quality Awareness Week and continue to spread the word. We appreciated that opportunity a lot. We also last Wednesday had an event with the Louisville Sustainability Council, their monthly green drinks event we held with them. This was an Air Quality Awareness Week version with air quality trivia. If the board was there, they would have had an excellent chance at winning some prizes because you all are up to snuff on your air quality trivia, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But that was a really successful event. It was a really good time, and we were glad about the turnout there. So we appreciated that the Office of Sustainability joined us, provided some information to the public, and of course, the Louisville Sustainability Council and their partnership is appreciated. So the Air Quality Awareness Week schedule is kind of divvied up into daily topics. And that's, if you go back on our social media channels at LouAPCD, You'll find us covering a variety of tools, resources available to the public on our channels in conjunction with those daily topics. Monday was wildfires and smoke, which is obviously something that we hadn't touched on much or didn't have much local information to share on in previous years. But now looking back to 2023, we have a lot more resources and data to share on how that might impact us here. Tuesday was asthma and your health. It was World Asthma Day, actually. So a good reminder that those with asthma and other breathing conditions are among those that are most susceptible to our common pollutants like ozone and fine particle pollution. So a good opportunity to get the word out to them. Other categories included air quality and climate, air quality and environmental justice, and air, animals, and plants. So it was a good week to continue getting the word out about our work, about resources available to residents, and opportunities for residents and local businesses to take their own steps to improve air quality, like our Air Quality Action Partners program, which is a segue to our second presentation today on our Air Quality Action Partners program. So Andy, if you could switch slides for me. That's the header slide, and on to the next. And one more. So I'm going to give a quick overview of our Air Quality Action Partners program first, and then I'll get to an update on our partners in 2023 and 2024. So the basics of the Air Quality Action Partners program, it is a program that was developed based on recommendations made by the multi-pollutant stakeholder group that met a few years ago. The program encourages businesses in Louisville and organizations to become Air Quality Action Partners by making voluntary commitments. That means beyond what is required through regulatory programs and laws and regulations to improve air quality and increase air quality awareness, particularly on days when an air quality alert is issued. So that's when air quality is forecast to be unhealthy for sensitive groups or worse on the air quality index. So this program started in 2021. It was specifically for businesses that were subject to an APCD permit. After a successful first year, participation was open to all Louisville businesses, non-permitted or permitted. Since the program's inception in 2021, emissions avoided due to actions taken from partners, this is based on estimates that are given as part of the program, include at least 180 tons of nitrogen oxide emissions, 6.3 tons of particle pollution, 6 tons of VOCs, and reductions in other hazardous air pollutants and greenhouse gases. So we're excited about the program's progress so far and the opportunities moving forward.
So once
Go ahead.
an entity becomes a partner, is that renewed annually or are they in?
So they make commitments annually, and we recognize them year to year. So just because you make commitments in 2022, you got to re-up for 2023 if you want to be recognized and make sure those commitments are on a yearly basis. And I'll talk a little bit more about the requirements, but some of the commitments that you can make are kind of based on annual emissions averages, things like that. So it's an annual program. If you can go on to the next slide, please, Andy. So like I mentioned, we allow both non-permitted businesses and permitted facilities to be air quality action partners. Non-permitted businesses can only be a partner at one level. That's just an air quality action partner. But our permitted facilities can make more meaningful commitments to be recognized at higher levels, like silver level partner, gold level partner, and platinum partner. And if you go on next slide, please. So a little bit of background on what those commitments look like. So we have something called Tier 1 commitments. That is having an environmental contact sign up to receive air quality alert day notifications, and the company having a system to notify all of their employees on site of air quality alert days and encouraging them to sign up for notifications themselves. That is a commitment that every single air quality action partner, no matter what level you are, needs to make. So really the base of this program is getting those alerts out to the public and to employees of organizations and businesses. And you have Tier 2 commitments. Those are, different levels need to make them at different amounts. So your basic air quality action partner that is a non-permanent facility needs to make one of these commitments. And then it kind of tiers up as partners are higher level commitments. So that includes stationary source equipment and operations and emissions commitments, vehicle and fleet emissions, commitments, facility and building related emissions. Broadly, these are things like undertaking an energy efficiency project, reducing emissions from certain sources at your facility, committing to an idle-free program, an idle-free policy, switching to electric equipment, electric vehicles, things like that. Small to large commitments that a business can make to improve their own operations, improve air quality awareness, and reduce their own emissions. And then we have what's a tier 3 commitment, and that is taking all of your actions that you've committed to and quantifying the emissions reductions that those resulted in that year. If you can go on to the next slide, please, Andy. So ACAP's commitments, and this is by level. So taking those commitments, what does each level mean? So the basic air quality action partner, non-permanent businesses need to make those tier 1 commitments, that's signing up to receive air quality alerts like we mentioned, and do at least 1 tier 2 commitment. Permitted facilities need to make at least 2 tier 2 commitments. To be a silver level partner, businesses make at least 1 commitment from each tier 2 category, so a few more commitments to reduce emissions. Gold level, like I mentioned, is that tier 3 commitment, all silver commitments, and then additionally, they need to quantify the emissions reductions that came as a result of those actions. And then platinum level partners, the highest level, need to meet all gold commitments, and they also need to meet specific reduction goals that they're allowed to choose from on a list. So as you tier up, more intensive commitments that they need to follow through on to be recognized as partners. Briefly, you make a commitment at the beginning of the year or right around now, and then next year, right about this time, we will check back in with partners, require them to certify that they did follow through on their commitments, and then at that point in time, they'll be recognized at whatever level they committed to and met. So we do not recognize them at their say platinum or gold or silver level until they've the following year certified to us that they've followed through on those commitments. So any questions at this point? Okay, next slide, please. So this is our certified air quality action partners in 2023. This is also very small, so I'll make sure to say it out loud. We had 5 certified as platinum partners, 5 certified as gold partners, and 11 partners certify as silver partners for a total of 21 certified air quality action partners. I'll go into a little bit more detail here about which partners did which. So these are our silver partners. They each completed a tier 2 or at least 2 tier 2 requirements, at least 1 from each category. So a total of 3 at least. This includes AAK USA, Boardwalk, Texas Gas, Clarion Corporation's Louisville South Plant and Louisville West Plant, IMI Kentucky LLC, LG&E's Cane Run Generating Station, Marathon Petroleum Company's Cane Run location, MPLX Terminals, Algonquin and Cramer's Lane Terminals, Raytheon Company, Reynolds Consumer Products, and Snap-on. So we appreciate their efforts. And then the next slide is our gold level air quality action partners. That includes, these are partners that, like I mentioned, followed through on their silver level commitments and took the extra step of quantifying the emissions reductions that their actions caused. So that's Acmix Tang Inc., Eaton Corporation, Eggard America Corporation, Raman Haas's Louisville plant, and Xeon Chemicals. And then finally, our platinum level partners in 2023 that certified their commitments. That includes these, like I mentioned, these met all gold requirements, and then an additional emissions reduction goal had to be met. So this includes Lubrizol Advanced Materials. They had commitments that included an ongoing plant no idling policy, and then process improvements to find and repair steam and compressed air leaks, and reducing steam issue and to reduce steam usage. And then their platinum level commitment was to reduce annual facility-wide reported emissions of VOCs, and that amount that they ended up reducing by was 63% year over year. And then we had Altiglass LLC. They deferred and rescheduled a variety of activities when air quality alerts were issued. And for their platinum commitments, they quantified the reductions from those activities that took place on air quality action days. And then American Synthetic Rubber Company, some of their lower level commitments included solvent management best practices and deferring mowing and groundskeeping activities on air quality alert days. And then their platinum level commitments were to reduce facility-wide emissions of PM 2.5 by at least 5% and ozone season emissions of NOx by 5%, both of which were met. Then LG&E's Mill Creek Generating Station, some of their lower level commitments included their ongoing work to electrify their fleet by 2030. And then their platinum level commitment was to reduce ozone season emissions of nitrogen oxides, NOx, by at least 5%, which was met. And then finally, the Chemours Company, some of their lower level commitments included idling restrictions and deferring mowing and groundskeeping on air quality alert days. And their platinum commitment was to reduce annual VOC emissions by at least 5%, which they certified that they did. So that is a wrap up of our 2023 follow through certified partners. So far in 2024, we have 5 platinum commitments, 5 gold commitments, 11 silver commitments, and 6 businesses committed at the basic air quality action partner level. That is 27 so far. We're encouraging businesses to sign up by the end of May so that they can be signed up before the season that we most often see air quality alerts, which is the summer season when it's hot, sunny, dry. And last year when we saw our wildfire impacts from those Canadian wildfires. So we encourage them to sign up by the end of the month. We're hoping to have a record-breaking year for the program this year. Really, it's a high priority to make sure that the employees in the city are getting those air quality alerts. It's a great way it's a great and pretty simple when you find the sign-up form way for businesses to sign up and to get the word out to their employees and take a few extra steps that help our air. So that is it for this presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Do you find that the partners advertise that they are in the program?
We've
Are they
mentioned.
allowed to, I'm assuming?
I'm sure they'd like to. We've gotten some feedback from partners that they're happy to take part in the program. It's something that they can, especially internally, that they can talk about. And I think one partner in particular mentioned that they can encourage they're like one local location with a bunch of national locations, and they use it to talk to their partners nationally about some of the steps that they're taking, some of the things that their partners nationally can do to improve their processes.
Or
But
vendors?
perhaps, but we've heard positive feedback. I don't see it that often out there, but
Okay,
it's a relatively new program still, so hopefully continue that outreach.
okay.
And it is a nice fit with respect to sustainability, which a lot of corporate entities have, the sustainability focus. This fits in really well with their outreach to their employees.
Questions, anybody? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, moving on to reports that were distributed electronically. I think we did not have an air tox report this month.
We did not.
The rest of the reports look, generally that was good. And the reports on the events are kind of traditional in the sense of what they are. So any questions by board members on any other reports? Okay. Again, want to make sure that you signed the attendance form if you haven't. To the board, it's financial disclosure forms, which are required or due and actually a little past due. So please do that. And it requires a notary, and
Monica Little
there's
is
such
our
a person
notary.
on the board, on the staff.
Yes, and she is available today if you
If
brought your
need be.
disclosure with you. If not, if you'll call and let us know when you can stop by, we'll be sure that Monica is here to notarize that for you.
Okay. And then in regards to our June meeting, which traditionally is the third Wednesday of the month, that happens June 10th falls on that day, which is a holiday. So we're going to reschedule that meeting till the following day, Thursday, June 20th, 2024 at 10 a.m. And with that, and I'm sure there's information on how you access that to the normal process.
We'll be sending out a cancellation notice for the regular meeting. There will be a notation that we will be meeting again on the 20th instead. And then, of course, all the board materials will go out as usual, highlighting that it's a day later than people might expect. But you'll see it in the usual form.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for their attendance and for all the reports, and this meeting is